You know, when the federal government shuts down, it can feel like a far-off political story, right? Just something you see on the news. But what happens when that gridlock in Washington, D.C. actually starts to affect your neighborhood, maybe even your front door? Well, today we're going to break down the very real, and kind of scary, ripple effect the shutdown is having on the entire American housing market. We're talking everything from canceled sales to a full-blown crisis of confidence.
All right, so here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the big picture impact. Then we'll get into how it creates this massive transaction logjam. After that, we'll see how that logjam fuels a crisis of confidence, which then puts a direct pinch on people's personal finances. And finally, we'll look at what the experts think might be coming down the pike.
So right off the bat, let's be super clear, this shutdown is way more than just a headline. It's really a silent crisis that's unfolding in neighborhoods all across the country, and it's having immediate, real-world consequences for buyers, for sellers, and for real estate agents. And if you want to know just how big of a deal this is, get a load of this number. A recent survey from Redfin found that 45%, that's nearly half of all American consumers, say they are now less likely to make a major purchase like a house or a car specifically because of the shutdown. That is a huge, flashing warning sign of economic fear.
So where does all that fear come from? Well, it actually starts with a very concrete, very mechanical problem. The very first ripple from this whole thing is a breakdown right in the middle of the home buying process itself, and it's creating a massive logjam.
Yeah, the whole problem starts with these specific government-backed programs you see here. So many home sales rely on these, but with the shutdown, really important loan approvals from the USDA, the VA, and the FHA are just on hold. And in a lot of places, you can't even get the flood insurance that's legally required to buy a house. These aren't just little hiccups, right? They are complete and total roadblocks.
And just so we're all on the same page, this logjam isn't some abstract concept. It means that real estate deals are literally being delayed, or worse, completely falling apart. Buyers can't get their financing, sellers can't close the deal, and the entire system just grinds to a halt because the essential government services needed to process the paperwork are just gone.
And this really gets to the human cost of all of this. This quote here from an agent in North Carolina just perfectly captures the stress it's causing. You know, in communities that really depend on programs like USDA loans, the shutdown isn't just some inconvenience. It's a direct shot to their local economy and to the finances of actual working families. And make no mistake, this isn't just a small, localized issue. This feedback is coming in from huge states like California, Florida, and Texas. And this agent's description of a train wreck, I mean, wow. That perfectly sums up the chaos that happens when a critical piece of the puzzle, like flood insurance, just vanishes overnight. Okay, so you have this logistical nightmare, right? But that's just the first ripple. What it creates is something way bigger, and frankly, more dangerous. It's a full-blown crisis of confidence that's putting a chill on the entire market, and it's even affecting people whose deals have nothing to do with those government programs. What's just staggering is how fast this fear has spread. So at the beginning of the shutdown in early October, you had about 21% of people saying they were hesitant to make a big purchase. Okay, but just 1 month later, that number has more than doubled to 45%. That is a massive loss of confidence in an incredibly short amount of time.
And it's not just one survey saying this. This drop in confidence is showing up in other major economic trackers too. For example, the University of Michigan's Consumer Sentiment Index has just plummeted to 50.3. Now, to give you some perspective on that, that's the second lowest level it has ever recorded since 1978. People are feeling a level of economic anxiety we just haven't seen in decades.
All this anxiety is creating some really bizarre situations out there in the real world. Realtors are reporting something they've pretty much never seen before. Open houses are absolutely packed with people. We're talking 40, 50, even 80 people showing up. But then, crickets. Nobody makes an offer. So the interest is there, but the commitment, not so much.
And this isn't just an anecdote. The chief economist for the National Association of Realtors, Lawrence Yun, is confirming this weird phenomenon. He says that even veteran agents are just completely baffled by it. And his conclusion? This weak consumer sentiment is directly causing people to hesitate on a major purchase like a home. People are looking, but they are just too spooked to actually take the leap. And you can totally see why they're hesitating, because this final wave, this final ripple, it hits people directly where it hurts, in their wallets. The shutdown isn't just creating anxiety about the future, it's causing direct financial strain right here, right now. So according to that same Redfin survey, More than a third of all consumers say they are already doing worse financially, simply because of the shutdown. And this isn't just a vague feeling of being worse off. It's a real, widespread financial stress that's setting the stage for our next and maybe most alarming statistic.
Just look at this breakdown. It's pretty sobering. 1 in 5 households has already missed or been late on a rent or mortgage payment in the last 3 months. And what's even more concerning, nearly 1 in 4 expect to miss or be late on a payment in the next 3 months. I mean, we're talking about almost half the country either struggling right now or expecting to struggle very soon with their single most important bill.
So, with transactions stalled, confidence totally shattered, and people's personal finances getting squeezed, what happens next? Where does the housing market even go from here once the political mess finally gets sorted out?
Well, the outlook is kind of a mixed bag. On one hand, the damage is very real. Analysts are expecting a significant hit to the nation's GDP in the fourth quarter. But on the other hand, there's this belief that the demand for housing hasn't just disappeared, it's just been put on pause. The thinking is that all this pent-up demand will likely come roaring back once the government reopens and deals can actually start moving again.
But that really leaves us with the biggest question of all, doesn't it? Fixing the logistical logjam, that's one thing. You can just turn the lights back on at those government agencies. But rebuilding confidence, that's a whole different ballgame. Once trust and confidence are broken, are they really so easy to repair? That is the huge uncertainty hanging over the entire future of the housing market.